Monica says, "Hi, Austin and Robert. I just discovered your podcast, and I wish I would have known all these things 45 years ago. I'm 60 and my husband is 62. We have 2.4 million across our 401ks and IRAs. Our home is worth 650,000 and we owe 200,000 at 2.8%. We have $25,000 in credit card debt, $100,000 in a HELOC, and $28,000 in student loans that we're paying for our children. We don't have a savings account. We just finished paying our last tuition bill for our youngest child and would now like to start working paying off some debt that we've accumulated putting these 3 kids through college so we can hopefully retire in a few years. Now, I've recently changed the elections for our 401ks to only invest up to the match, and I also plan to pay down this debt aggressively. Between my husband and I, we make about $400,000 a year between our salary and our bonuses. At the moment, we're still paying about $3,000 a month in rent and expenses for our youngest child in college, but hopefully we'll be able to cut that back here pretty soon. So here's my question. How would you prioritize paying off this debt and building an emergency fund? Do I do it all at once using our retirement funds, or do I do it over time as we earn money via our income? And how should I reallocate our retirement accounts with retirement 3 years down the road? Robert, you want to kick this one off?
Yeah, this is a tough one because although it's exciting that Monica G and her husband do have this $2.5 million socked away, I love that, and that's awesome. But what I don't like to see is we've got this HELOC that's out there at 9%. We've got this credit card debt of $25,000. So that's tough for me to really swallow because I feel like they've got the nest egg, but then they've got all of this debt that we consider high interest debt. And also they're kind of freewheeling with everything for the kids as well. And although $2.4 million sounds like a lot, it is not a lot considering that, your current lifestyle is going to carry over into retirement in the next 2-3 years. And I think you're going to have to be really, really cautious what you do in the next 2 to 3 years to make sure you're still set up well for retirement. So in my opinion, to answer the question, I would first prioritize, how can I get rid of the credit card debt? Maybe you do a balance transfer to a zero interest card for 18 months to get rid of that. Try to hurry up and get that paid off. But then also looking at the HELOC. You don't want to let it 9% that HELOC go for too long because that is going to eat you alive in interest as well. That's my situation. I'd like to see those 2 things paid off first before they think of anything else fancy towards retirement, because you got to knock these out before you start thinking of any other ways to benefit yourself in retirement.
I entirely agree. I think one of my favorite sort of slogans when it comes to personal finance is that, only 20% of it is a math problem. The other 80% is behavior. Right? It's pretty elementary school math here to think like, okay, if I make 400,000 and I spend 450,000, then I'm going $50,000 in debt. And so I just want to make sure, Monica, like you all are $153,000 in debt. And if we are going to pay this off and be smart with our money, by paying this off, you all are not going back into the debt, right? You're not getting another HELOC because you want to redo the kitchen. You're not going back into credit card debt because you want to go on the vacation, right? You're doing things that actually make sense for you financially. So here's what I would do, honestly. You have $153,000 of this high interest debt between the HELOC at 9%, the credit card debt at probably 30%, and the student loans that are anywhere between 5 and 7%. You have 2.4 million in your 401ks and your IRAs, and you're over the age of 59 and a half, which means you can tap into that money without paying sort of a penalty or whatever that might look like from the IRS. Depending on the type of retirement account, you'll still have to pay taxes on the money that you take out. So I probably would take out the $153,000 from your 2.4 million. You'll still have 2.2 million, right? Sitting in that account, which is a great amount of money. Maybe even take out 200,000 besides just that 153. So you can take the other, call it 47, 45, whatever there, and put that in an emergency fund, right? You said you don't have a savings account. If you're making $400,000 a year, you absolutely should have a savings account of $20,000, $30,000, $40,000. The only thing I want to make sure you're super aware of is that all the money that you're taking out of this $2.4 million 401k IRA, assuming it's not a Roth retirement account, just a normal traditional account, you'll owe taxes on. And if you make $400,000 a year, you're probably in the effective tax rate closer to that 30% range. So just make sure you've got an extra $60,000 or so set aside for Uncle Sam in April of 2026 to offset the 200,000 of extra income that you received via your retirement accounts to get yourself out of this mess. At $400,000 a year in salary and bonuses, you absolutely should be able to set aside $60,000 over the next 12 months. So that's what I would do. I would take out the 200K from the retirement accounts to wipe out this debt, and then I would set aside $60,000 from my earned income, right? The take-home pay that hits your checking account, put some of that money aside, right? That's $5,000 a month, and I would do that for the next 12 months to make sure I've got extra money set aside for the tax bill that will come. And then again, just want to reiterate how important it is to solve the underlying illness, the problem of overspending, right? Because like being in credit card debt, having a HELOC, having these student loans, that's a symptom of the problem. The problem is your spending behavior. And so if you and your husband, and I totally respect that you guys want to put your kids through college, and I'm assuming this 100 grand of the HELOC was for college, right? It probably wasn't just for some willy-nilly things around the house, like a kitchen remodel or a boat, which I respect, and I think that's great. And hopefully we don't have this again in the future, but just really want to make sure you guys are solving the problem of overspending and going into credit card debt as you all are now approaching an awesome retirement. And then beyond that, congrats. You've got 2.2 million, you make 400K, you're going to make another, let's call it 5 to 750 grand after taxes over the next 3 years with this salary and bonus and things like that. Go sock away half of that and you'll be back to that 2.4 before you know it. So you guys are setting yourselves up for a really great situation. The biggest thing, again, is just make sure you're making the right decisions going forward.
Yeah, this really brings me back to something you say a lot, and that is wealthy people forecast and poor people react. And I think this is a situation of it's kind of a hybrid. And for any of you listening out there that have kids that are going to be going to college and you know what college they're going to be going to, maybe they're staying local at the, nearby college, think ahead, forecast. What's that going to cost? What does that look like? What's the real estate market around that college like? Because you could look ahead and say, hey, we're high earners. How can we get rid of some of our tax bill? Well, you could go there and buy a duplex, buy a triplex, buy a quadplex on the college and have a unit ready for your kid to use during their 4 or 5 years at college. That would be a great way to look at and forecast a way to save money, but also build equity, have some depreciation, have some appreciation, and be able to set yourself up and forecast ahead of a better way to spend money. Because I love the fact that you guys are high earners. That's the hardest part of the wealth bucket to figure out. But now that you've got that figured out, it's time to start forecasting better and not have these high interest debts.